Here is my new project. It's a browser game. Here are the stuff that I'm going to talk about. I don't have gameplay yet. Mainly, I've been thinking about the overall game design. First of all, I've been heavily influenced by Super Mario and games like Super Meat Boy. I have stick figures. I will be drawing stick figures, hence the name Stick Drift. Now, in terms of game design, what I really think is important is determinism. What does that mean? It means if I have a string of input, if I save what you press specifically on every frame, if I take that data and put it into another machine, you should have the exact same results. That might sound like it just comes naturally, but it doesn't. In game dev, there's a lot of variables. One of the variables is floating point accuracy. It basically means when you have fractional small numbers, since your computer has limited RAM, you cannot possibly express every real number. You start to lose a bit of accuracy. Over a single frame, it might not look like much, but if you add everything up, in the end, you might have a completely different result, even if you have the exact same input. It also ties to things like pixel perfect. I don't do any of the filtering or anti-aliasing. I don't think I'm going to do any of those things. So right now I can, so this is a native resolution, 640 by 360. I can do 2x, 3x, and so on. I cannot go beyond 3x right now because of the physical limitations of the monitor. But if I do 2x, I'm multiplying everything exactly by 2. I'm not doing 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, and so forth. The point is keeping consistency across all machines. There's so many variables in software that it's not going to be 100% consistent, but you can get pretty close. To me, this is important because you want to have shared experience on input and output. A lot of times people share something just because something looks good and they want to talk about it. I want to go a little beyond that. I want to be able to do things like speed runs, TAS support. TAS meaning tool assisted speed run, I think. Basically what it means is if you can pause the game whenever you want, you can also rewind, you can also play, you can also fast forward. You can manipulate exactly what you want to press at exactly whatever frame you want. And then you save the input. And then later, if you play it like a video, you're going to get interesting gameplay that a normal human being virtually, it would be impossible for a normal human being to do in a normal speed environment. So there's a lot of stuff that could happen that I could build on if we have a shared experience in terms of the input and output. If your input is the same and your output gets a completely different result, it might not even necessarily be completely different. You might have a little bit of a desync, but even a little bit, once you go past the negligible amount, pretty much everything falls into chaos. So to me, things like pixel perfect, fixed time steps, it all ties to determinism. And I've been thinking about a lot of that. And one of the factors is since JavaScript doesn't have native integers other than big int, it's important for me to stay with the whole numbers, stay with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pixels, instead of doing something like 1.1 pixel or 1.2 or 1.3 and so on. Right now, I'm setting up the general pipeline for development, and I'm mostly happy with it. I'm using things like lazy Git. You can use any client that you want. You can the GitHub is already public, so you can see the You can see every update that I put up there. Sometimes I use Vim. Sometimes I use Zed. This is a new IDE that I downloaded. I think it's pretty good, so I'm using this a lot of times. And eventually I'll streamline the whole process and start building something meaningful efficiently. So right now, if I hit F5, I have my custom loading screen, and then the initial scene is you have to get the first player gesture to get started. Press any key. Then I can press F5, F8 to cycle through the resolutions. Let me go full screen. Oh, I don't have full screen yet. Again, it's just 1x, 2x, 3x, and then 4x. And then I also have F2 and F3 to cycle through different scenes. I'm testing my little animation. And everything seems to be working nicely. I don't have too much experience in terms of browser games or JavaScript or excalibur.js. I'm using excalibur.js, by the way. I need a bit of time to get used to. So this is a very first project. And I would like to keep the scope generally small because I want to get a feel for everything. And then later, maybe I can do more complex stuff. But I try not to think about the stuff beyond this project. First, I want to get some meaningful progress here and then adjust. So next topic. Since we don't have any gameplay yet, I just have some code that I set up. I think it's important to have gameplay, some sort of gameplay, maybe even just a little bit of input and output with the character. I think that would be good. So I think I'm going to start working on collision and movement of the character. And collision also ties into determinism. Again, I'm not doing 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. I'm sticking to whole numbers. And I'm also trying to render everything in pixel perfect form, meaning if I also extend this to collision, I can do something like, instead of a general physics simulation, which is going to be very difficult and a lot of times non-deterministic, if I have the character move in straight lines in 1 pixel at a time, so for example, I can move X and then resolve Y after that. So everything moves in a straight line. That would allow me to bypass the entire physics engine. I think excalibur.js has a physics engine, I think, or at least a collision system. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to create my own code that's specifically fit for this project because I think these things are important. And I want, even though this is going to be a single player game, I want the people to be able to share things, and sharing the exact same input and output based on that input is going to be important. I might be able to do stuff like rewarding people based on creative gameplay or something like a speed run where it can get competitive and so on. There's going to be a lot of stuff that I can build on once I have good enough determinism. It's not going to be 100%. Depending on a lot of things are going to depend on your machine and your browser and everything else. But if I can get to something like 99%, and then the minor desync is going to be negligible, if we have that, then I can build a lot more on top of that, even though it's a single player game. So those things are coming. And fixed time steps. I haven't really talked about fixed time steps in this video. I talked about it a lot in previous videos. This is similar to the floating point. Computers run in many different environments. And keeping the exact same frame becomes difficult. Someone might have a high performing computer, a gaming rig. Somebody might just have a rundown laptop from your office. So in this case, the minimum requirement is for your browser to be able to run 60 updates per second. If you can do that, then pretty much any other machine that has higher performance will probably have the same output. I can't generalize it. There's so many variables, but the goal is to have, again, the goal is to have, if you have the same input, you should have the same output, and then we can build on that. So that's it for today. Hopefully, in the next video, I might have player movement as well as collision. If you have any questions, you can reach me. I'm going to have all the links below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.